What's up, guys? Welcome to Moonlight City. I'm Chris. We're back. I'm back from seeing Back to the Future in the movie theater. Back to the Future just turned 40. I just saw it in the movie theater. Seeing movies in the movie theater is fucking awesome. I'm going to explain to you guys why. So let's get into it.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
So like I said, I just saw Back to the Future in the movie theater. A couple months ago, I saw Jaws in the movie theater also. So I wanted to make a video on Jaws, but back then I was a little hesitant on making videos, especially a review video on a movie that's 50 years old and has just, thousands of people reviewing it and just talking about it and discussing it in all kinds of different ways. So for me to do like a review of a movie that, has a yet another re-release, because it's been re-released before.
I don't think you appreciate the gut reaction people have to these things. You yell barracuda, you're racist, huh? You yell shark, we got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Yeah, Back to the Future came out, and I wanted to see that in a movie theater, and it was just a great experience. And so seeing both of those movies in the movie theater just left me with this impression that more people need to be doing this. And I think more people are doing this, is not just going to movies, go to a movie, but going to the movies to see an older movie. These movie theaters are struggling a little bit. Movies that are coming out, a majority of them are just really bad and don't deserve to make any money. And that's hurting these businesses, movie theaters. And so to help them out, they're re-releasing these older movies, and these older movies are keeping them alive. They're making money. I think when Jaws came out, it actually was either number 1 or number 2 in the box office over, movies that it shouldn't be number 1 over. We had a pretty busy box office this summer, and Jaws was up there, a 50-year-old movie. And it might be the case for Back to the Future too. I'd like to see the numbers on what this movie does. I know earlier in the year, Batman Returns had also been re-released. So these movies get re-released, and I think it's important and it's special to take the opportunity to jump on it and to see a movie that you love in the movie theater, especially if you're a movie lover. And if you're watching this channel, you probably are. So seeing the movie on the big screen is way different than just watching it at home. I mean, obviously, but even if you have a big, 40, 60 inch TV screen or a projector screen, even if you have a surround sound or like a little mini home movie theater system, or even like a little home movie theater in your basement, it still just doesn't live up to watching a movie in a movie theater in a packed house and experience that movie with, a few dozen people. To be able to experience that and have that experience with other people is a special one. And I think that's not one that you can just can be recreated at home. You can have other experiences at home that are equally as special, but I think the movie theater going experience is a unique one in itself and should be explored by most people, because it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good, and you don't really have to do anything, and you don't really have to go too far. It's a way to escape and not really go anywhere. So I think that's obviously the important part of why to go to the movie theater. But seeing a movie that you've seen before in the movie theater, I think also is really special, because it just leaves you with an appreciation for that movie and for what the movie has done for you. When I watch Jaws, I don't have big memories of Jaws, right? Jaws for me was just the movie that Steven Spielberg did before Jurassic Park. So Jaws was just like a fun movie to throw on before you threw on a bunch of other movies, before you threw on, Indiana Jones, right? That's what Jaws was to me. Jaws was just like, okay, we've watched Indiana Jones over and over again. We want the same kind of feeling of adventure and excitement, so we throw on Jaws. But once Jurassic Park came out, Jaws went by the wayside, and movies like Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park and Independence Day, those movies kind of like take over your interests when you're growing up. Jaws falls by the wayside. But Jaws sticks around, and Jaws made it to 50, just keeps entertaining people. And I was like, okay, I don't have strong memories of this movie, so going to see it will be like a little bit like going to see a newer movie. My memories of it are pretty far. But then watching it, all those memories of the movie come back, and all the things that you remember about it, you recognize. You're like, oh yeah, here comes the part where they're like, show me the way to go home, all that stuff. So all that stuff is really fun, and then to have this feeling like all these memories wash over you while you're watching this good movie is really fun, for me to like sit there and remember like me watching it at my grandmother's house and playing, like with toys that trying to mimic the action that you see on the screen. You forget about some of that stuff, and when you see the movie, the recall comes back of like the places and the people and the things that you were doing when you saw that movie, and all that is like really special. And not to mention, the movie is great. I mean, yeah, watching it on the big screen, like I said before, you really appreciate the movie a lot more when you watch it in the movie theater with a packed house, because it's got to hold your attention. And not only does it need to hold your attention, but it has to hold the attention of the person next to you, and the person next to them, and then the person next to her, and then the person next to him. And it needs to hold everybody's attention. And all these people come from all different walks of life, and all have all different types of experiences. And if it's a good movie, it has to make everybody walk the same line and come out of the movie with almost the same feeling, right? It has to just entertain everybody and make everybody leave that movie theater feeling the same thing. And that in itself is a special thing, to go somewhere and to commit to the idea that we're going to forget about everything else. All the important stuff in life is going to go to the side. We're going to turn off the phone. We're going to just put away everything. Nobody's going to get in contact with us. We don't know what the weather is outside, if our car's locked or not. You forget about where you even parked. You're just alone in this dark room. Your peripherals are completely closed off, and the only thing in front of you is this big massive screen where the images in front of you are 10 times larger than they would be in real life. And all this is happening in front of you, and it all has to happen and like you experience with everybody else. You're all committed to go on this same like little journey of like, all right, we're gonna put our faith in this thing and put our money into this thing that we're going to let entertain us for about 2 hours. And let's hope it does a good job. And when it does, and you walk out of there, it's special. It's meaningful. And it's meaningful, and it's meaningful because you'll have talks with people down the road, or you'll have conversations with people down the road about like your memory of like, where were you when you saw this, or who you were with, or what you were doing when you saw this. And that's what a good movie can do. And yeah, going to see it again, you appreciate that it does that for you, and it does that for people. And then it's hard, it's hard to make these things. And you see it when you're watching it on the big screen, you realize like all the work that's up there. And you're hearing it, and you're seeing it, and you're feeling it. And when it's working, you appreciate it. You appreciate the hell out of it when it's on like a big screen like that. That's your eyes have to scan over, You know, it's different than, like I said, your 60-inch screen at your house. You know, your things have to almost come out of focus, but you want to look at them, you know, because it's interesting, or you know, it's just fun. It's just, anyway. So the other thing is the audio. The audio experience is way different than what you're gonna have at home. You know, you can't recreate the sound experience in your house. And a lot of guys are watching this. You probably tried to make a home theater in your house, or something similar to like a little home theater experience with speakers or sound bar or what have you. And guys, if you've gone into like trying to undertake the project of making a home theater system, you know that you can't come close to like movie theater sound. It's just different. You know, your 5.1 isn't matching up to your 12.2. Your sound bar isn't matching up to the Dolby Atmos. You know, your Bluetooth, it's just not gonna, it's not the same thing. You could hear it. You know, watching Back to the Future, just hearing the little sounds of the DeLorean are just so like exciting and uplifting. And it's like, you know, the car doesn't make those sounds, but the sounds that they put in there to like make it sound like it's going fast is great. Like it sounds like a souped up battery, you know, or like a souped up like electric race car, like one of the little small ones, like a little small RC car. You know, that's what it sounds like just moving fast. You know, and you know, if you know anything about the DeLorean was like slow as shit. So the fact that they made it sound and look and feel exciting, you know, you feel that when you're watching the screen, and you like, that's why that car stands the test of time. You know, and they put the work into that thing. You know, you could, when you're watching on the big screen, you're looking at the crazy backing of what they did to that, and you can't make sense of it, but it looks fucking great. It looks cool. It's the DeLorean. It's awesome. It's the flux capacitor. You know what I mean? This is the 4K version. This is the DVD version. So Chris, why do you have the DVD version and the 4K version that you spent $40 on, which is way too much money? The fact that they charge you $40 for Blu-ray or $30 for a Blu-ray is crazy. How they expect, you know, we talk about on some of the previous videos about how certain movies are able to make a profit off their, you know, older movies. Older movies were able to make a profit off their home theater release. And these days, that's just not the case. And with some of these movies, you see that they could use the help. You know, F1 came out on 4K not too long ago and did pretty well in the home movie theaters, in whole movie theater market. Like, it did pretty well. And that movie cost a lot of money to make. I'm sure they were happy to take that money. So yeah, make DVDs and 4Ks cheaper, Hollywood. But keep putting these movies out in the movie theater, because I love it. It's better than going to a museum. You know why? Because in a museum, you go see like an artifact, and it's behind like the glass or the cage or the veil or whatever. It's behind. You can't touch it. You can only look at it and take it in. With a movie that's 50 years old, it's better than a museum piece, because you're actually experiencing the movie. The movie is doing what it was intended to do all over again. It's doing what it did 50 years ago. And that's pretty special to like be sitting there and realize, like, man, I'm laughing at the same stupid ass joke that I laughed at like 40 years ago or whatever it was, you know? And it's important, I think, too, to like to watch it with an audience too, a strange audience, because you don't know what's going to make those people laugh, and you don't know what's going to make those people laugh might make you laugh. You know, sometimes, you know, this is the case with, like, this is why they put laugh tracks in sitcoms. You know, somebody else's laugh it's contagious. It just like it just like makes you giggle. When you hear an old lady giggle at one of Quint's little dirty jokes, that's funny. It takes you back. I wasn't expecting it. I kind of kept my mouth shut, because I knew there was a few older folks around me. But when he goes on telling his little dirty jokes on the boat, which he does a lot of, people are laughing, and it's great. It makes you laugh. In Back to the Future, when I'm watching Back to the Future, there's a skateboard scene where Marty's getting chased through the town, and Biff is chasing him, and Marty like makes him crash into the manure truck, right? And the manure falls all over the guys. There was a little 10-year-old kid in the background just giggling his little butt off, and it was hilarious. It just made the scene even more hilarious. You've seen that scene thousands of times, right? The manure falling on them. Oh, it's nasty, gross, haha, that's funny. It's not laugh out loud funny. But when you watch it and the scene is happening, right? And the music is going and it's happening in front of you, and then it happens and he spits out the manure or whatever happens, and then the little 10-year-old kid in the back just goes hee hee hee, just is like laughing hysterically, like just giggling his balls off. It's funny. It makes the scene even more funny. So watching it with an audience is special, and watching it with a strange audience, it can be special. It's a pain in the ass when people start busting out their phones and start talking, and the guy's explaining the shit to the dude over there. That's all annoying. But sometimes you get a good audience, and sometimes you get a good audience when you have a good movie. That's the thing. It's like when you have a good movie, you get captivated. I paid money for you to do this. I paid money to be swept away and entertained. So I'm ready. So people are ready. And people say like, oh, going to movies is a pain in the ass with people talking. Well, that's because movies suck lately. Movies are not like Jaws. Movies are not like Back to the Future. And even though these movies are like one of a kind, you could still like try to make it to that level, right? Because look, this movie is pretty great and is part of a pretty great trilogy, right? Part 2 and 3 are really good. I really like them. Everybody kind of shitted on 2 at the time, but all in all, I think as like together, it makes a great trilogy. I think it, in my opinion, is up there with top 5 greatest trilogies. So 2 and 3 are equally great. Are they as good as the first Back to the Future movie? No. And I think that's why people kind of went bad on them, because they weren't as good, and because sequels were like really pounding people to the ground. Late 80s, sequels are it's sequel city. And I think at the time, like Back to the Future 2 and 3 come out, they come out a year after each other. It is also within a time where just a ton of other sequels are coming out. And so I think people had like a little bit of sequel fatigue, and were burned by too many sequels, too many bad sequels. And then you get Back to the Future, which is just one of the greats. It's hard for its sequel to live up to it, but I think that's why people are kind of like were a little shitty about part 2 and 3. I love part 3. As I grown older, part 3, like I used to think part 2 was better than part 3, but as I gotten older, I realized part 3 is the better movie. So yeah, going to the movies, seeing older movies, pretty special. Means something to me. I love movies. I love going to movies. I love what going to a good movie does to you. I love what that feels like. I love like that thinking about what that movie did to me a day later. I love that feeling. I love that thought process of like, why do I like this? Why is it, it wasn't better than X, Y, or Z, or it didn't have A, B, and C, but I still loved it. Why did I love it? What made me love it? And you think about it, you think of all the little pieces, and you peel through it like an onion, and it makes it even better because it makes it rewatchable. And it makes it rewatchable where you could even watch it 40 years later, pay money to see it with a bunch of strangers in a movie theater and experience it again and have almost a better experience than maybe even the first time you saw it. You know, I had a way better experience watching that's not true. Like I said, you know, memories are different. You know, they're all meaningful and they all mean something different. You know, you can't really measure them. It's like, you know, trying to stack up your children. You know, you can't really do that. So, but my experience with Jaws in the movie theater that time was probably one of my favorite experiences of watching that movie. You know, and I was by myself, you know, and it wasn't like a packed movie theater. You know, it was fairly, you know, there's a few people in there. It's 40, 50-year-old movie on a Saturday. So we're not all losers. So, yeah, it was a great experience coming out of Jaws. Like I said, I wanted to make a video about it just because I was like so jazzed about like watching this 50-year-old movie and then watching it and being like, this doesn't even feel like it's 50 years old. This feels like it came out today. You know, other than like a car here and a car there. And, you know, that was it. You know, there was no, you know, maybe you could say, oh, why don't they just use a cell phone? You know, there's a scene where they pull out a radio and then, you know, Quint gets pissed off and he busts up the radio. So who knows? Maybe that would have happened with the cell phone too. But yeah, there's nothing that like points to like, oh, this is dated, you know. And I don't think Steven Spielberg like really intended on making it that way. You know, people don't intend on making things timeless. You know, you want to make something where you don't, it's not like a time stamp, you know, like Back to the Future. You know, Back to the Future is, you know, 1985 is a staple of the Back to the Future movie. You know, it has to be. You know, the 1985 date is just, you know, widely apparent in Back to the Future. But the 1985 aesthetic and style, that's not like too stuck on the movie. You know, like just a little bit of like fashion of the day that's influenced in there. You know, you got the music, but it's very a little like toned down a little bit. You know, even Marty's outfit. You know, he's got the vest. He's very 80s looking, right, with the rolled up denim jacket and all that, and the Nike sneakers. But when you put him in 1955, he doesn't look widely out of place, right? He looks out of place, but it's not crazy. And I think that's because, you know, they didn't want to make this like too dated. You know, it could be, you know, Marty could have landed in 1955 coming from any time. It just 1985 just happened to be when the movie was made. So, yeah, the movies were great. I just wanted to come on here and ramble and just throw out my thoughts on why these movies are great, why it's great to see them in the movie theater, why going to see movies in movie theater is great, you know, why you should pay your money. You know, part of the reason why we don't see good movies is because they're not making money and because we're not paying them money. And it's a cycle where they don't make good movies, we don't go see them. You know, and we're going to go somewhere else. Or, you know, I think a lot of the problems kind of started, you know, when movies were able to get like easily pirated at a higher at like an almost equal quality to like what the master of the movie is. Right? So when I was younger, like back in the day when you get like those VHS bootleg copies off the street, you know, those are really bad copies, and you know, you definitely didn't get your money's worth, and you definitely didn't experience the movie the way the movies was intended to be experienced. You know, you just kind of watched the thing, you just kind of saw the thing. You were able to say to somebody like, oh yeah, I saw the new whatever, but you didn't like really experience it. You didn't really see it. half of it, the screen is cut off, sound sucks. But these days, the rips that you get off the internet of a movie can be just as good as the thing that you're seeing on screen. Not all the time. It still varies, but you can it's there. The opportunity is there for people to get these movies just as good as they are when you pay for them. And if people have that option, they're not going to pay for them. And if people are not going to pay for them, the industry loses money, and the industry needs money to pay good talent. Good talent costs money, and Steven Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis, they're who they are for a reason, and this is one of their earlier works, and it's obvious, why this is so good, and why Jaws is so good. It's because they had really good, skillful guys behind them, and those guys were passionate about it, and those guys cared about it, and those guys wanted to do it even if you didn't give them the money. I think Steven Spielberg loved making, even now, he still loves making movies. He's a filmmaker. Robert Zemeckis, same thing. That guy just loves, the trickery and the filmmaking behind film. So there's a reason why those guys last. There's a reason why Back to the Future lasts. And yeah, that's all I got. I'm tired. I want to go home. You guys make like a tree. Get out of here. Peace out, guys. See you later.